All right. So let's talk briefly here about JavaScript strings, one of the more basic data types, but then quickly get into methods on using them. Has anyone been doing Edibit challenges? I know Bob probably brought it up. Has anyone given those a shot? If you've tried to give it a shot, that's a great place to be. Like, please be doing that. If you want to give yourself, in 4 or 5 weeks from now, if you want to feel a lot more comfortable with your tooling, going through that struggle right now with Edibit's going to be a huge benefit. The first couple you'll just feel like you're kind of hitting your head on the wall sometimes, but you'll quickly find a rhythm and get through some of them within a few days. It does a lot. Okay. So strings, really high level again, one of the main 5 data types that we have in JavaScript. Denoted by what symbols let us know that we're giving the computer a string? The quotes, yeah. So double quotes works, single quotes works, and we'll look at this with ES6 JavaScript syntax, which I'm going to start introducing as early as today so we can slowly get into it. We can also use backticks to make strings. So know that all 3 of those syntaxes are perfectly normal for writing a string. Whatever you use, just be consistent. Now there's specific uses for backticks, which we'll get into. They're very nice. They've got some extra functionality built into it. But if I wanted to, let's say I had 2 strings here, our first, for F name for first name, and L name, we'll go with Mendez. If I wanted to outprint Shawn Mendes, what operator is used to put 2 strings together? Which that? I think I heard it. I want to put these strings together into one string. Yeah, we use this operator, the addition operator. When we're using it with a string though, what does that process refer to as when you're adding 2 strings together? Yeah, it's not addition, it's concatenation. It's strings version of addition. So we can use this in 2 different ways depending on the data type we're using. And there we would get full name. Okay, so that's high level. There is one other property of a string that arrays also have. How many digits is this long, and how could we find that out? Yeah, so just like arrays, strings have a dot length. So I can console.log fname, and that should give me what? It will, because I just said fname. Good catch. Now, if I say length, what would I get? 5, yeah. So this is the same. Arrays, strings, they have the same length property, which is interesting because what would I get if I console log fname bracket 0? S, yes. This is really important to know. Arrays have indexes, so do strings. So I can index strings and find the length of strings the exact same way as I do with arrays. There's no difference in that regard. There's a huge difference on being able to change it. Namely, you can't. I can't say fname, let's see. I can't say fname bracket 0 equals, now it's Lahan. Yeah. So if I console.log fname now, what would we expect to get? But we get Shawn. Because strings are primitive types, it's like trying to change the number 1 to now be the number 2. The name Shawn, those characters in that combination exist in your computer, you can't change it. So trying to literally change one character of a string doesn't work. The computer just won't let you do it. But an array, it will, right? I can say array bracket 0 is now this, and it'll let me swap it out. So just know that difference. Even though we can say bracket notation to get indexes of a string starting at 0, and we can even get the length, we can't change the string. So what if I wanted fname to be Lahan? What would I actually have to do here? If I can't reassign a single character and I want fname to now equal LHAWN, reassign the whole thing. That's the only option you have. So I can now say fname. It's already declared, so I don't need to say var. But I can say fname, you now equal Wahan. And when I run that, it works just fine. You'll probably find this name somewhere in Utah. We've got everything here. But I did make that up. Okay, is there any questions on this? This is kind of like the basics of how strings work in a little bit more detail. What if I wanted to console log the Z of Mendez? What would I put in here? The Z of Mendez. L name. Square bracket. I've heard some 5s and some 6s, but if you thought 5, that's right, because it starts at 0, just like arrays do. Now, what would I get? We looked at another syntax we could use that would always grab the last character of an array. It works the same on strings. So what's another thing I could write in here instead of 5 to get the Z? Or if I got rid of the Z, this would now console log the E. There's a certain thing I can write here that will give me that. Length minus 1. Yeah, so console log to me the L name's length minus 1. Because what does, with the name Mendez here, what does this number, what number does this evaluate to? Yeah, so this evaluates to 5 minus 1, which gives us 4. Wait, 6 minus 1, thank you. Which gives us 5, which is the last character of the array, right? Index 5. Now, if I got rid of the Z, this is now 5 minus 1, evaluates to 4, and gets me the E. So with strings or arrays, you can say the string or the array name, brackets, the string or array name dot length minus 1. That'll always give you the last index dynamically. Yeah, strings. Okay. Log the last item. Get 365, yeah. Or oops. Okay. So you will quickly find, if you haven't already, that every data type in JavaScript has pre-built tools inside of them. We can just use these tools whenever we need to perform an operation. Does anyone know what these tools are actually called in JavaScript? Something I can say on a string, like string.split. Methods. And what is a method? It's a function in an object. Yeah, which is weird. Strings aren't, they don't look like objects, but I can declare a string like fname and then say fname dot, and there's a bunch of methods, including length, except length doesn't need parentheses. It's a property. But these are all functions, that little, what we're seeing here. So if I wanted this to be all uppercase, I could say fname dot to uppercase and call it. And this is actually performing a function on this string, or whatever string this variable is pointing to. So let's see that. We'll console log that function call. Well, it's still on. That's fine, I guess. But. And if you've been doing any edit exercises, you've probably been introduced to a couple of these. So I'm going to show you kind of the basic tool set for strings. What methods should we try to get down to start off with? And then we'll have some exercises with that as well that you'll be able to get some practice. Okay. Any questions up to this point? Hopefully it's a nice review of strings, a little bit more. Okay, so you want to think of methods like shortcuts or cheats. Like a lot of being a programmer is using code that's already written. Right? We use React because we don't want to write our own framework. We use languages because we don't want to write our own language. A language is how all these different words interact and can be used together. Smart people built all this for us. We just get to play with it, figure out how they did it. So let's look at a couple string methods. And so we can see what this looks like in the in object form. I am going to link an HTML page. So we can open this up in the browser and console log and see a little bit more descriptive console logs. Okay. So I'm going just to declare a string here. And then I'm going to console.log it. And we're going to look at it over here. That just gives us the string name, just as we expect. Now, everything that we're dealing with in JavaScript, you want to start thinking about it over time as an object. Everything has properties. That's why we can say name.toUppercase. Even though we don't see that here, it's all built into this. So another console command you can do to see the inside properties of a JavaScript variable is console.dir. And this is console.directory. It shows it as like its object form, just so we can see what its properties look like. And now when I click over here, we'll see this refresh, and it's still not giving me what I wanted. Come on. Let's see, console.dir name. It knows who Harry is, but it won't show me the details I'm looking for. All right, 1 second here just so we can see it. Now do you know? No, still don't know what I'm talking about. It's incredibly odd. I'll have to come back to this. You know what I'm talking about. You know, a little arrow you can drop down, see your object. Console's never not done that for me. Okay. Well, if we were able to look at this as a console.dir, and I will find a way so we can see it today, what we'd see is something like this. Function one. And we'd see this giant object, hundreds of lines long, that has all these different properties built into it. So this little object full of, what is the actual value of the string? Oh, it's Harry. This is one property of this data type. It has all these different functions that we can call just built into it that we don't see right off the bat. One that we can look at to start off with is .concat. What do we want to guess concat does? By the name itself, where else have we seen that word? Concatenate strings. So for some reason we don't want to use the plus operator. We have a method that we can use on any string that allows us to kind of shortcut to it. So let's have this whole first name, last name again. And if I wanted to output that name concatenated together, I could say fname. So whenever you're using a method, you use the data type itself. You name the variable. And then you say dot and choose the method you want to use. So I'm saying on first name, I would like to concatenate, which is a function. And then what I put in the parentheses here is what I'd like to concat to the first name. So I'll say concat the first or this last name to it. This will perform a function. It takes in this string that adds these two strings together. Once this is done, it outputs our final string of these two combined, and we'll save it in this variable. It will, just because I accounted for it right here. So don't let that fool you. I did account for a space here. String Harry. Oh, now the console dir is doing something, of course. Yeah, it's an interesting syntax, but yeah, it's something else. Hey, so concat. One of the more simple methods, you may not use this one because plus signs and backticks do it way better than this method does, but seeing that it shows kind of what a toolbox is going to look like. So let's look at a couple others, notable mentions. How about index of? Has anyone seen index of? Mariah?
So it's basically you put in the letter of something, like a string, find where it is.
Yeah, exactly. So we can give it a string, and inside of the parentheses, we can put in some character. It will return the numerical representation of where that is in the string, just like an array. So starting at index 0, it'll return the number, the index of the representation of the first match it finds. So let's find the first T of Potter. We're going to console.log lname, which is the string we want to call the method on, then dot index of, and I would like to see the index of T. What numerical value will this return? We're calling index of, will it call 0, 1, 2? Yeah, exactly. So it finds the first match, the first T. So it's going to give us 2. So let's try that. 2. All right, so index of is nice in the sense that you need the index of a character. Yeah. I put a space right here. I just put that in the string so I didn't have to put a space in here when I concatenate it. Yeah. Now, what if I wanted the second T? I don't want the first occurring index. I want the last occurring index. That's a good idea. There's actually a whole other built method. So index of will find you the first match. If you just chain last index of onto this, now it's going to find the last match. Starting at the end of the string, it will find the first one. To us, it's the last match. So now we'd expect to get 3. So this would be 3.
Something weird I've noticed with that, some code the index of,
Yeah.
instead of always just -1, there's an empty index of.
That's exactly what exactly where we're headed. So sometimes it's nice to know, as Morona is saying, that I'm actually just wanting to see if this string occurs or this character. But if there isn't a T, what should index of return to let us know that I didn't find any T's, there is no index value. Undefined is something that some methods might return. What index of chose to return is a -1. So if you get a -1, that means the item you're looking for doesn't exist. So let's make that happen by console logging lname dot index of Z. There's no Z in Potter. We should expect to get a -1. So this is nice. If we're thinking of this in a conditional statement, let's say we needed to check the name to see if it had a Z and do something if it did or didn't. What does that sound like in JavaScript? You need to ask a question and do something depending on it. Yeah, it's a conditional statement. We're asking if this, else that. So we can ask in our if lname dot index of Z is equal to -1. What am I asking there?
So if it doesn't exist.
Yeah, if this is true, then execute this code. So I'm really asking, does Z not exist in the string? You kind of have to get used to asking those kind of negated questions to yourself. So if this evaluates to true, we're saying does -1 equal -1? If so, console.log, there is no Z in Potter. If we wanted to ask another question, maybe then we want to see if there's an H or a T, something that does exist. So index of, we'll go P. And then what would I need to, will this ever be false with this setup? Sorry. That's true, this will always run. But what would this evaluate to? Yeah, it'll evaluate to 0. Cool. So this is, you'll find yourself asking method questions instead of if statements. This might be a little bit further than we are right now, but just know this is what Edibit style questioning is going to train you on. And this is just problem solving using the tools we have. Okay, I'm just going to leave the if there, and we're going to move on to the next. So we did index of and last index of. Okay, slice. Close this for now. We'll just use the console. So slice, if we need to take a piece of a string or a string in general and reformat it, then this is really often. What is a string representation you can think of that might need reformatting after the user gives it to you? The user is filling out like a form on a website, giving you some information. What's something we might have to format off of their data? Capitalizing letters, what do you say? Phone numbers. Yeah, what if they give us their phone number, like this, but really we need it with the dashes when we're making it show to the user. So this is what we actually have stored. This is what we need to create. So there's many instances where we need to start cutting strings into pieces, adding them back together with other characters so they look normal to the user. That's just one case for a slice for this type of method. But it allows us to take a string and say, I want these 3 digits in one variable, these 3 in another, these 4 in another, and then add them together with a minus. Yeah.
Question, how is slice different from substring?
Very slight. They're very similar. There's a substring and there's another sub-str. They're almost identical. So we'll look at the docs in a second. But yeah, those 3 are very similar. So we'll just hit the slice. So let's see slice in action. Let's take a phone number that some user would have given us and try to get at least the first dash right here using slice. So the way the slice works is it is a method that takes 2 arguments. What does that mean? If I say this is a function or a method that takes 2 arguments, what am I referring to? Yeah, that's specifically what the arguments are, so that's great. Generally, what are arguments? Parameters, yeah. They're the data we're feeding in to the function here. So whenever you hear that, write a function that takes these 2 arguments, or slice is a method that takes at least 2 arguments. So yeah, it takes 2 numerical arguments. The first one is which index do you want me to start slicing, and the second one is where do you want it to end. So if I wanted to cut the first 3 letters off and save it into area code, for example, what 2 numbers would I put in here to cut the first 3 numbers? Let's see what that does. We're all about testing it out. We're not afraid to be wrong because we are going to be wrong. A4, I mean. So what does that tell you about slice? Yeah, it's saying cut up to, but not including index 2. So it's saying 1, 2, and stop here. So if we actually want the first 3, we have to account by that by saying, grab me the first 3 digits, stop at the 4th.
And that first one is just your starting point.
Yep, just the starting point. Start at the first one. And that is inclusive, but we'll take it. Right, so now if I run this, 849. And I've got that saved in its own variable, area code. So later, once I save these 3 numbers and these 4 numbers, I can add these 3 variables together, make a cohesive phone number for the user to see on a website. So good exercise. Think about it for a second. I don't know what the next 3 numbers are, like prefix. Cool, I was gonna say next 3, so prefix is better. Prefix equals phone input dot slice. And what I want is these 3 characters. Think about it for a second. I'll just choose a name randomly and we'll see if we can get this. I'll just think about it for a second. And I'll call on somebody to get the answer. Yeah, so let's go Emily. 4 and 7. What do we think about that? You find yourself counting it like 100 times, I swear. So 0, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, so it's 3 and 6.
3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see. Yes, because we did 3 here, right? And that wasn't inclusive. So here it's being included. And then we're saying grab that one, the next one, but not the one immediately following it. So let's console log prefix unless we have any disagreements among us. 374. Okay, we've got the next 3. Now we want the last 4, which I'm just going to call last 4. Now this is open for anybody. How are we getting those last 4? 6. So I'm going to argue all we have to say is 6, because another thing about slice is if you don't give it an ending point, it'll just go to the end for you. So here I can just say 6, give me the last. So we're going to console.log last 4. 9402. Okay. Now I want to add them all together, aka concatenate.
Question for you real quick.
Yes.
What if you were to add 10 with the 6? That the same,
Yep, do the same thing.
but just say.
Yeah. You can say nothing at all and it'll go to the end. You can also say to the end. -1 is kind of a syntax for that. It's like just cut to the end. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. And you could use inside of here, if you want to say the end, we use our ending syntax. We say phone input bracket phone input dot length -1. And it looks crazy. All of a sudden we have all these brackets, but it's saying the exact same thing. This is just evaluating to the last index number of the string. So we're going to add these all together, and we're wanting to put a minus sign in between them. So what does that tell us we're going to have to do with these 3 strings? What's that word for adding those strings together? Concatenating. Okay. So we'll say, we could even get fancy with this. We could say opening parenthesis plus area code plus closing parenthesis. Might as well just put a little space there, plus prefix, oops, plus minus sign, plus the last 4. Can you read this? Do you see what's happening there as far as what I'm adding together? We're manipulating strings to make it show up normal to the user. See it? Nice. So we took, all they had to do was give us our phone number. We did some formatting with just using slice and concatenation to create the correct format. All right, any questions with slice? So that's an example enough to kind of get you started with it. This is a good time to talk about your resources for this. Where would you look if you needed to know the syntax for slides? W3. Yeah. What would your Google search be? Yeah, I maybe say, I heard all the right words. So I'm going to say W3 slice JS. And if I want to be more specific, because some of these methods arrays have them as well, I'd say string slice, but let's see what that gets us. Yeah, it's pulling up array slice first, string slice second, so make sure you're looking at the right one, string slice. And here's the syntax, here's a nice example to play with. Then you go to the parameter values or the arguments, start and end. And this is optional. Up to, but not including, which we discovered by playing with it. This number is not included in the slice. We'd have to go to 7 if we wanted the one past it. So get used to looking at this documentation. This is something that, like, in a technical interview, if you get a question, as long as you know what you have to use, if you forget the syntax, most people are fine with, like, could I Google search this syntax again? I know I need to use it, I just forget how it's used. That's an everyday thing for a programmer. So, I mean, some of these will get memorized just by how often you use them, but just being aware of what they are and where to look if you need to use it is really enough to get going. Split. Want to know what's going on? See the code above this? Oh, yeah.
If there are spaces in your string, you're trying to slice up to spaces count as like another number counting that?
Yep. Spaces are characters in JavaScript, if that's what you mean. So if I try to do index of space, it would find the first space in the string and give me the index number of it. Yeah. So
space needed that length for definitely come up. 6.
Yeah, this would be a length of 6, as Alan just pointed out, because this is a character, as far as strings are concerned. Okay, split. Split is another way of just formatting a string. You know, we need to change the way it looks or have the ability to use other methods on it that maybe strings don't have. Has anyone used split before? It's an interesting one. It's a very useful one. Because what a split does, let's take, we'll just say var. I'm running out of words already today. Jedi equals Yoda. Okay. And what I'd need is an array for some reason. We don't need to know the context of why I'd need Yoda in the form of an array. But what if I have a string, and what I'd like to do is use some sort of array method. We haven't covered yet, but arrays have them too. Well, I can use split to tell this to turn into an array or create an array off of this string. It doesn't literally turn this into an array, but it creates an array as long as you set it equal to a variable. So I'll say var Jedi array equals Jedi dot split. And split needs an operator. Where do you want me to split the string? So if you just say empty quotes of any kind, single, double, it's going to split at every single character and return an array with all those items. So what would the length of Jedi array be? And then we'll look at the actual array itself. 4, yes, it is 4. And there's no Z in Potter. I'm going to just clean up our console a bit. Yeah, so this evaluates the 4. So let's look at what we're actually checking the length of. Yoda. All right, so close quotes, this means split every single character. Now what if I put the letter O in here? Now I'm telling it to split somewhere else. I'm telling it to split at the 0, or sorry, not the 0, at the O of Yoda. So what I get here is interesting. It literally cut it right there and turned the opposite sides into array items. So the single quotes are the only ways, or the closed quotes is the only way to get every item into an array. But if I just wanted to cut the O's out and for some reason get, Y and DA back, yeah,
they use index of that also.
Oh yeah, tell it to like split at a specific index of this character. Yeah, let's, just to see some fun syntax, let's do that. Lots of O's, it's gonna be I want to split this array at every, or split this string at every instance of O and get an array back. The first, okay, there's it getting arrays of all the O's. Now, what if I only want to get rid of the first O or the last O? I could put another method in here, and this is a bit advanced for now, but just so you can see it. Lots of O's dot index of O. So I'm saying the way that JavaScript reads, think of order of operations. When you're working in math, things in parentheses happen first. So the first thing that's actually evaluated in this line is what?
What's the start here?
Yes, this happens first. And what does this return? Lots of O's dot index of O. It finds the first existence of O, which in this string is 1. All right, so this entire expression here evaluates to 1. All right, now what are we asking? I'm now realizing this may not work, but now what are we asking? Let's say split at the number 1. I actually don't know what that will do, so let's see what happens if this just even breaks. There we go. Yeah, it turned it into an array, but we didn't give split an operator of some sort of where to split it. So we'd have to do something, sort of if statement or something in there.
I was wondering, like, if you were to use brackets, always that brackets, like index number.
Oh, sure, like that? Yeah, that will say split at all O's like we had before. Because this actually evaluates to O, which is an operator that split understands. We gave it a 1 and just kind of like turned it into an array to see if that's what we wanted. So split is handy for that. Splitting stuff apart. We'll say Jedi.split again, just at every index. If I put spaces in here, it's saying only split at spaces. So this actually has no spaces in it. Yoda doesn't. So we're just going to get an array with 1 item in it. But if Yoda had a space, what's that array going to look like? Yoda. Yeah. All right, well, what if we have an array like Yoda, like we have here, and we want to put it back together as a, we'll just turn it into a big array like this again. I want to turn this back into a string. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here because this is now, what kind of data type is this? It's an array, so we'd have to use an array string, an array method, which we'll cover tomorrow. But we could say Jedi dot join, and it takes the same operator. If I just say empty quotes, join it at every separation. And so now we'll console.log Jedi array again. So we're going to see split Yoda, we're going to join it, then we're going to see joined Yoda. Oh no, sorry, I needed to put that. It returns a new variable, just like all the other ones. So Jedi string. I'll console log the Jedi string. Okay. So now we will see the string, or the array, and the string, if I can get things to not break. Oh. Like this. Yeah, there we go. Right. So we split it. We see the split string. We use the array method join with the same operator. It joins it back into a string. I'll make a note here. Array method. Some last notable entries. This is really it for string methods of what we're going to give right now. I know it's actually, I say it's really it. I say things very matter of factly. I know they're not. Please don't take it as like everyone's finding it simple and I'm not. I don't find this simple. I just talk about it a lot. The last two we want to look at is two uppercase and two lowercase. Do we have a guess of what those do? Hopefully, I will console.log Jedi to uppercase, and then I'll console log it Jedi to lowercase. Yoda, Yoda. Now, just to give you an idea of what we've been doing with all of these, what will Jedi console log right here? Okay, what about now? Yeah, will it console log uppercase Yoda, or will this to lowercase turn this to be lowercase Yoda? Yeah. Well, yeah, the main point I'm getting at is these methods, the ones that we've looked at, don't change the string. It creates a new piece of data. So when I had to split this into an array, I had to make sure I said Jedi array equals, or else this creates the array, but if I don't assign it to a variable, it just disappears after that line of code. I have to say, you know, I'm going to use this and turn it into an array. Here's that operation. This will evaluate to that array, so I need to set it equal to a variable so I can use it later in my code. So even these are console logging the uppercase, lowercase. We're not setting it equal to anything. We're not reassigning Jedi. We're not saying Jedi now equals itself, but in an uppercase form, we're not saying that. So it's not reassigning. It's leaving it alone. So we get uppercase, lowercase, and then regular Yoda after it's all over. Not all methods are this way. There are specific ones that mutate the data, is the term for it. We give it a string, it does an operation. If we use that method, it actually changes the string, variable or object or array that we were given. We try to avoid that, but sometimes we got to use methods that do it.
I've got a quick question with the split.
Yeah.
So if you use, is there a way to use like an indexing where you only use a state split at a certain letter and it takes the letter away and doesn't return it in the array? Is there a way to split it? Split it in a certain index if you don't list the letter in the array?
Trying to visualize what you're asking, sorry.
So, like, say with Yoda.
Yeah.
If you split the O, it's going to take the O away and give you a Y and a D.
Right.
Is there a way to split it where it splits it in half?
Oh, I see what you're saying. We probably use slice for that. I mean, we can always double check. It's been a second since I've looked at the split syntax, but I don't think it supports that. Let's see. So we're
I just sliced it if we just did that.
yeah, and once you're on a methods page, I know it's a little hard to see, but once you're on the actual page on W3, you go here to JS string, and here's all the methods built into all strings. So you can see we've only looked at a couple, slice and split, but there's quite a few that you'll find yourself using. So split takes a separator and a limit. So an integer that specifies the number of splits items after the split will not be included in the array. So now it just needs a separator of where you have to use splice probably. It's a little bit heftier, which we will we double check the assignment here. I'm not giving you anything you haven't seen. Great. Instructions. Yeah, I have two exercises that are going to get you some practice with string methods. Before we do that, I'd like to do a quick review of functions as well. I know you just covered it yesterday, but seeing the syntax, how they relate, writing your own, super important. So do we need a short break here, get some more coffee? I'm thinking short because we're gonna end hard at 10:30 to start working on exercises. That's in a half hour. So let's take a 8-minute break. Be back just after 10:05. We'll get going. This next section is going to be short, so that gives me time to